Okay, it's 12:01 by my watch. I believe we'll just go ahead and start, and we'll trust that everyone who is meant to be here will join us.
Later.
Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, uncles, aunties. You're welcome to this beautiful Saturday afternoon. On behalf of the Apostles in the Marketplace Network, we welcome you all to this important event. We'd like to start off with an opening prayer. Our dear Father in heaven, we bless you, we worship you, we glorify your name, and we thank you for the gift of this beautiful day. We declare that this is the day that you have made and given unto us, your children. We will rejoice and we will be glad in it. And so we bless and we worship your holy and your wonderful name. We thank you because you are a good God. We thank you, Father, for everyone who you have ordained to be part of this meeting. We invite you now, Father, come and take your place as the chairman of this meeting and superintend over everything that we will do here. Father, we commit our panelists and our participants into your hand. We ask that you will direct their affairs as it pleases you, and that your kingdom will prosper in our hands today in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Father, we thank you. We bless and we worship your holy and wonderful name. Take all the glory, for in Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. Amen. And now we'll take our national anthem. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and true. Great love divides our faith, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Amen. We'll take the pledge. I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend her unity, and uphold her honor and glory. So help me God. Amen. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome once again to the Apostles in the Marketplace June event. I'll hand over to Pastor John now, who will take us through the vision of the Apostles in the Marketplace Network. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ayo. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, can we just move to the next slide? Thank you. Yeah, so the AiMP, it's a network of Christian leaders and professionals in the marketplace who are passionate about nation building and are very interested in societal transformation. When we started a few years ago, we had our first session November 2003. There were a number of things on our heart, but I think those things have coalesced into what I call one founding objective, which is to develop and support individuals who are committed to personal transformation, who then can lead transformation in all spheres of society, and on whose shoulders a new nation in the hands of God can be built. Our vision is to be a strategic vehicle for nation building across the African continent by values-driven transformation of the marketplace. So AiMP is a strategic vehicle starting from Nigeria. The calling and the mandate is to transform the nations in Africa, walking one step at a time. Our vision is to raise apostles in the marketplace who can facilitate societal transformation. And we define apostles as change agents who are committed to making a difference in society. We define apostles as individuals who have a personal relationship with Christ and who are able to discipline themselves to apply biblical principles, first to themselves, and then to use it as a tool to transform all spheres of society. By that definition, we mean that the people that are at the core of the network, the individuals who lead it at the core, are people that are subscribed to the Christian faith. We do not by any way imagine that only Christians can change society, but we know that only the values of Christ can transform society. The AiMP series, which we're having today, provides a forum for discipleship of marketplace Christians. Jesus ordained 12 that they might be with him. And the reason is because you cannot transform society except you're first transformed by God. So this is one of the opportunities we have where we spend time, go through a process of mindset transformation, character formation, putting on the kind of attitude and accepting as a way of life the kind of values on which we can build a society. And the ultimate purpose of a series like this, as we're having today, is just basically to be a platform that empowers articulate their burdens and ultimately society. And there are many other ways we try to achieve this. There are many programs we have. Today we're having the AiMP series, and this is the June 2020 edition. And we have Nation Building Workshop, which is more of a working session that highlights some of the things we do in the course of a year and builds on the AiMP series. And then we have training programs. We have training program for younger people who are in the early hours of their, what we call early hours of their careers in the various spheres of society. And that we call Working for God in the Marketplace. And then those who are, we have a training program called the Change Agents Academy. The Change Agents Academy, it's currently ongoing in Abuja, and we're going to launch another Changes Academy by August 2020 that'll be fully online. And I hope that many of us who participate today can fully take advantage of this. We would like to once again welcome you to this session. If you would really like to know more about the network, if you're new to the network, maybe attending an AiMP event or program for the first time, I would greatly encourage you to visit our website, aimpnetwork.org. You get a lot more. The whole essence of our meeting today is to accept the responsibility that only humans like us can build a nation like Nigeria, and that in partnership with God, nothing is impossible. And I hope that in that regard, that as we all participate, that we'll get the best out of this session. Thank you very much. I would like to then hand over to Dr. K. Nelama. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor John. I take it that I'm being heard loud and clear. If there's any problem hearing me, please indicate. I'm very excited to be part of this program today. I know that it's a real opportunity. I'm sure that you will permit me to say so, even if I say so myself, that it's a star-studded program. When I look at the quality of the panelists, the quality of the moderators, the quality of the attendees, I mean, the people who are actually joining us, I feel that this is a very special place. And I hope you will exceed all our expectations in Jesus' name. Amen. As we have been told, the theme of our event today is opportunity in crisis, reskilling, retooling, and re-educating for the fourth industrial revolution. I was trying to figure out, what in a very limited time I should share with us. And I decided to share 3 thoughts, given the topic of the day. I mean, the first thing is, just to focus on this theme of opportunity in crisis, something I'm very passionate about. I believe that life is about perspective. In fact, I'll go further and say I believe that the Christian faith is about perspective. Faith is all about perspective and what you believe and what really drives you from within. I'm one of those people that I believe that what the Bible says in Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to them who love God, to them who are called according to his purpose, is central to understanding opportunity in crisis. That nothing really happens without God's permission, Lamentations 3:37. That, God is a good God. That in permitting something, he's already seen the good that will come out of it. But this is particularly true for people of faith like us who want to, embrace the challenges of life and see the silver linings coming from there. Romans 8:28, of course, tells us that everything will work out for good if we walk with God, if we partner with God in it. And I believe that this is so true. I'll just share one testimony, just to drive this point home. Many years ago, I was invited to speak to a group of young people, about careers and how to get on in life, And in that particular program, had a Q&A. And I was asked a question. Somebody asked me a question, a young person. She said, how do you know when it's time to leave your job, to take on a new job, or maybe go and become an entrepreneur or something like that? And I gave what I thought was a Christian answer. I said, you pray about it, you reflect on it, and, God will speak to you, and, situations may also help. But when I finished that program and I was leaving, I believe the Spirit of God spoke to me and said that, do I realize that most times when people, either change careers or start new things that are pushed, something goes wrong. It's almost as if like, they were coasting and then suddenly something happens. And then, that thing that happens that creates a crisis that launches the new opportunity. And that thing stayed with me. And when the Holy Spirit speaks, obviously, the Holy Spirit knows what he's talking about. I believe that this is what happens in a vast majority of cases. For instance, I'm the chairman of a company called African Capital Alliance. I know that the company was started in the midst of such a crisis. I went through a crisis myself. Our chairman at the time had to leave what he was doing because, he had come to an end, and one of our other founders was also going through something that propelled him to be interested in starting the kind of business we started at the time. So in effect, I do believe that, opportunity in crisis is a very important topic to focus on because it raises the question for you and for me. What are you doing with this crisis? This is an unprecedented global crisis we're in. What are you doing with it? What are you making of it? More recently, I had a voice from within tell me that like time is a treasure. What are you going to do with all this time you have in this season? Are you going to squander it or are you going to make the most of it? I'm glad that we have signed on to this event we have today because that's one good way to use our time. That then brings me to the topic itself, the topic of industrialization and the fourth industrial revolution, and the whole theme of reskilling, retooling, and re-educating ourselves. Let me again share from my own experience. As some of you may know, I served in the last government in President Buhari's first administration, 2015-2019. While I was there, I went for a Christian program where a very prophetic man, a man with a prophetic unction, spoke. And I think he was speaking, in connection with my role at the time. And he said he sees a day when there'll be full employment in Nigeria. As you will agree with me, humanly speaking, it sounds impossible. I mean, that's just the only way to say it. But like the Bible says, with God, nothing shall be impossible. So when we're thinking about this reskilling, retooling, and educating ourselves, re-educating ourselves for the world, I held on to that prophecy. I haven't given up on it, by the way. I honestly believe that a day is coming when, as mind-boggling as it may be, as as difficult as it may be to wrap our heads around it, when there'll be full employment because of divine intervention and because of what God will do with the kind of people who are on this platform today. So when we have sessions like this, I look at them as means. In other words, God is up to something. God is working something out. But he's going to use people like you, he's going to use people like me, and it's going to involve a significant amount of reskilling and retooling and re-educating. Those people who feel that are okay and are in their comfort zone and don't want to, grow or make change happen, will not contribute much to that process. But if we are open-minded and we want to grow and we want to change and we accept that the status quo is unacceptable, that we want a better Nigeria, then, I think that you may well be part of the vessels that God will use for this coming new day, new dawn that we're all waiting for. Let me just bring this point nearer home for those that I think is far-fetched. Some of you might know MasterCard Foundation. I don't know how many of us know that MasterCard Foundation is devoting all its resources, we are tens of billions of dollars, to creating 30 million jobs in Africa, over the next 10 years. That's their stated mission. That's what they're working at, and they are busy at it. To bring it even closer, I have a friend that many of us might also know called Fred Swanica, one of the co-founders of African Leadership Academy, African Leadership University, and so on. He tells me that working to create 2 million jobs. Why am I mentioning these examples? They will involve a significant amount of reskilling, retooling, re-educating, if it's going to happen. So the topic we're dealing with today, if it's not tautology, is very topical. It's very, this is what we should be talking about now. How will change happen if we're not going to be the part of that change? Then to make it even more personal, one of the ideas or one of the projects we've been working on, some of you would have heard of it, is a project to launch a world-class STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics and management university in Africa. We're thinking of locating it in Nigeria. We're about to start a one-year fellowship that from September, an all expenses paid fellowship that will cover technology, entrepreneurship, design. It's out there in the social media. Some of you would have read about it. It's called the NSP, Nigeria University of Technology and Management Scholars Program. But Nigerian University of Technology and Management is one of these bold ideas to partner together as people who have a vested interest in Africa to build a world-class university, much like they've done in other parts of the world, that can be part of this fourth industrial revolution, part of this 21st century economy, and part of what we need to be doing at this time. So again, I want to relate it to the discussions we're having today, because all these are solutions. Well, we want to be part of the solution. I'm sure you want to be part of the solution. We don't want to just talk about the problem, maybe, feel despondent or discouraged or whatever. We want to be part of the solution. And that's really the commitment of the stakeholders in AiMP, Apostles in the Marketplace. Let me conclude by just zeroing on the fourth industrial revolution itself. My portfolio when I served in government was industry, trade, and investment. And the fourth industrial revolution specifically deals with the role of technology in industrialization. Just that technology, industrialization, interconnection, that's what it's all about. And you will agree with me that if you look deeper into that, you will eventually come to the role of education and technology in 21st century industrialization and job creation. So I hope that as we go through our discussions today, that this idea of preparing people, because this is really a people-centric agenda, of preparing people, for the 21st century, for the fourth revolution, will capture our minds. One of the things I've been asked to do as I challenge us to engage with what is a star-studded panel or panelists, group of panelists and moderators, is to introduce our two moderators, two women, and thankfully I'm glad that are two of our very best who are moderating for us today. I have a lot of respect for them. I know each of them personally for many, many years. And I would like to just introduce them briefly, and then they will introduce the panelists, because the panelists deserve their own special introduction. I've already made the point that the panelists are star-studded. But before I introduce them, let me thank our panelists, every one of them, because I know that it took a lot of, for them to accept, to make the time for this is a big deal for us. And I hope it's a big deal for you. And I hope you will see that we're extremely fortunate to have such a quality panel engaging with us today, interacting with us today. But let me stay with the two moderators, starting with my dear sister, Bolaji. Bolaji I've known for many years, and what intrigues me about her, among many other things, is her passion. Anybody that knows Bolaji knows she's a passionate person. But she's not just passionate, she's passionate about education. Education is her thing. And not education in a narrow sense, education in the sense of working with just society, you know. She's worked with several governments. She's worked with the transition government at the federal level. She's worked with, I know the last Lagos state government, she was part of the transition. She's worked with Ogun State. She's worked with any number of states. And in addition to that, she actually has a practical expression of her passion in a school called Global International College, where she's actually training, you know, our kids, as they call them, our youth. I hope she will share some of her testimonies today. Every time she gives you a life story of what's going on, you know, the thing just comes alive. Bolaji is somebody, she's very well trained. You know, she trained at London School of Economics. You know, she's a lawyer by training. And of course, she's done business programs as well. And most importantly, she's been a partner with us, you know, in this whole journey of transforming education, transforming our nation, transforming Africa. I'm not going to go through her CV in detail, which I think is now being projected on the screen. But Bolaji, I welcome you and I thank you for accepting to moderate our session today. Let me also welcome Ndidi Muneli. Ndidi is somebody I've known for many, many years. Ndidi, in fact, I was going to say I met Ndidi when she was young, but that will not be true. I think she was in university and she might argue that university is not a toddler, but still, I've known her for well over 20 years and counting. Ndidi is a very special person, not just that she's talented, but she's somebody that, just has led by not just example, but by, coming up with institutions and mechanisms and platforms that actually bring about change. You know, I remember when she finished from Harvard Business School and returned after her stint with McKinsey, she came back to launch Faith Foundation, then Leap Africa. And these things, those of you know, we know that are some of the biggest platforms when it comes to youth transformation in Nigeria. You know, she's now very big on agriculture. She's consulting in it, she's investing in it, and she's networking in it, you know, through Sahel and some of the other platforms that she and her husband, Mezu, share. I know that, I won't be tooting her horn if I say that, like, I know for the Harvard Business School, there were, I don't know what they call them, people who addressed the class when they are graduating. Their husband addressed the Harvard Business School graduating class of 2020. I was going to say, let somebody praise the Lord. I mean, that's a big deal. Ndidi is somebody that basically has been very involved with AiMP itself, and she will also be moderating today. I can't say enough about her or about Bolaji for that matter. Let me just thank both of them for accepting this responsibility and for working hard then to assemble the panelists and the facilitators who will be part of the program today. I join all the leadership and members of Apostles in the Marketplace, AiMP, in saying thank you very much. God bless you. We love you. We appreciate you. And I'm handing over to you now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okenalama. We're really, really, really honored to have you do this wonderful introduction. And on behalf of Bolaji and myself, we want to thank you for your very kind words. I'm going to start off today by introducing our very distinguished panel. And I thank the AiMP leadership for this wonderful work. A lot of planning has gone into it. From the onset, I want to say a few things. Number one is that we all know that we're facing a crisis, but a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And as the previous speakers have said, this is an opportunity for us to rebuild, retool, and rethink. We have 4 phenomenal panelists who have worked very diligently to prepare for today, and they're all going to have 15 minutes to share their presentations. I want to underscore that this is not a talk shop. The great thing about this panel is that all of them are already influencers, change agents, and leaders in their own right. And last night, when we were doing our final preparation, they all attested to the fact that they are part of a very phenomenal initiative where every idea that's shared today, the great questions that you're going to ask as an audience, and the insights that we're all going to garner, is going to be channeled into a document that we're going to share with the government, and each of these panelists is also going to share it with their own working groups. And they're all part of this initiative, and I'll just explain. So the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, ERGP, and the Vision 2020 will lapse in December 2020. So the government, the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning has commenced the preparation of a long-term plan tagged Nigeria Agenda 2050. And they've also tagged another initiative, the Medium-Term National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, to succeed the plans respectively. The great thing is that our panelists are all part of this visioning exercise. They are members of the task force that's working on education and human capacity as well as institutions. And so we are going to ensure that every single insight that's shared today goes directly into those plans. So I want to thank our panelists in advance for all that's going to happen and charge all of us as change agents on this line to work collaboratively. Now, the first panelist is Mr. Bayo Rotimi. He's the CEO of Quest Advisory Limited, and he's going to be speaking with us today about the general overview of the Nigerian economy and the impact of the pandemic. Just to give a big background, Bayo Rotimi has 26 years of investment banking experience. He graduated from the University of Lagos. He has a bachelor's degree in economics and a master's in banking and finance from the University of Sheffield. He joined the investment banking division of Fountain Trust Merchant Bank, then moved to FCMB. He has tremendous experience in mergers and acquisitions. He rose to the position of CEO. He's licensed by the Nigerian Securities and Exchange Commission. He's a member of the Institute of Directors and so many other initiatives. He's the chairman of the investment committee of ARM's Discovery Aggressive Growth, Ethical and Money Market Funds with over 50 billion naira in management. He's a member of the advisory board of the EDC of the Pan-Atlantic University. He teaches strategic planning at EDC. He has a wealth of experience. And more than that, he's passionate about national transformation, passionate about Nigeria, and passionate about leading us forward as a nation. So I'm delighted to welcome Bayo Rotimi. Welcome, sir. Please start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Ndidi. Thank you. I would share my screen and please confirm that you are able to see the screen.
We can see it. Go ahead.
Excellent. All right, so I have 15 minutes, so I will try to run through. I think I have about 16 or 17 slides, so one slide per minute. I'll try and speed through it. Thank you very much, the organizers and the leadership of the AiMP. My job today really is to set the stage, set a context upon which the narrower conversations around the educational sector will take place. It's important that we have a sense of where we are. Dr. Enalama spoke about, and Ndidi also spoke about the opportunities that exist in a crisis. Without a doubt, the global economy is facing unprecedented challenges across from Europe to North America to emerging markets. Economies are facing significant pressure. Nigeria and the rest of Africa are also neck deep in dealing with the fallout of COVID-19. But I think it's instructive to mention that whilst COVID-19 has worsened a bad situation, but our economy has been struggling even before COVID-19. So what has happened now is we're dealing with a double whammy of sorts, where the impact of COVID-19 has further weakened the already fragile fundamentals upon which our economy is based. The Minister of Finance, Budget and Planning recently said it is very likely that our economy will go into a recession and will contract to the tune of 4.4% in this year. It is not peculiar to Nigeria. I will show you a slide now where across the world, leading economies are also expected to contract significantly this year. Why are we in this situation? Outside of COVID-19, it is still this undue, this over-reliance on one singular product to deliver roughly about 90% of our foreign exchange inflows. And that singular product is crude oil. And this is a commodity whose price we do not control. And the quantity that we actually sell into the marketplace is also outside of our control. So it's a bit of an irony that 60 years down the line, we're still having the same conversation about how do we reduce the impact of crude oil on the national economy. Now, some people may say, well, the sector's contribution to GDP is marginal. It's about 9%, which means in theory that we have a well-diversified economy. Yes, I agree that to some extent, the oil sector only contributes less than 10% to our economy. But guess what? Since it delivers up to 90% or thereabouts of our foreign exchange inflows, since we still run an economy that is largely dependent on importation, then it is no wonder that every time crude oil prices take a tumble, Nigeria feels the full brunt of such a development. So that's what we're seeing in terms of the possibility of our economy going into recession this year. We're starting to see consistently inflation on the uptick. We're starting to see a situation where our foreign reserves from a high of about 47 billion in June of 2018 has come down to about $36 billion about now. This can only accommodate or cover imports for about 5 or so months. So it is indeed a precarious situation. When the reserves go down, unfortunately, it has a direct impact on our currency and the strength of our currency. So we've seen a situation where there have been 2 official devaluations, one from 306 to 320 something, and from 320 something, we now have 360 as the official exchange rate, even though a market determined rate also exists and hovers around 385. I think that is part of the conversations we need to have. I believe that some of the resolutions from this our engagement, as Ndidi has said, is for us to share some of our thoughts with government. I have one final slide at the end of my presentation where I have some initiatives that I would like to put forward, and hopefully this can be escalated and carried on onto the government. We need to find a way to reduce our over-dependence on a singular source of foreign exchange inflows, and that is really what I will be talking about in some detail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for any economy to thrive, the government is a major player. The 2020 budget is the current set of numbers that we're working with. This numbers or the budget has gone through, I think, 2 or 3 iterations so far since it was presented to the National Assembly by Mr. President sometime last year. And it is understandable why there have been multiple iterations, simply because we realize that on account of COVID-19, the basis and assumptions upon which this budget was drafted has changed fundamentally. Crude oil prices initially, we had a budget benchmark of about $57. Earlier this year, crude oil prices dropped below $20. Fortunately for us, and I believe God is definitely a Nigerian, He is definitely in our corner, we've started to see crude oil prices inch up again. So that is a good thing for us, because the last economic recession we went into, our first in 25 years, was essentially as a result of the collapse in the crude oil prices. We got out of that recession largely because crude oil prices recovered. Unfortunately, 3 years down the line, we're into another cycle of depressed crude oil prices, which has again impacted on our very fortunes as a nation. And not surprisingly, if you look at the budget carefully, you will see that our revenues have taken a significant hit. So the projected revenues had to be adjusted downward significantly. So government is looking to spend maybe about $5.5 trillion, trillion naira, generate 5.5 trillion naira in revenues. Our expenditure is still in excess of 10 trillion. It means that there is a deficit between what we are able to earn from oil and non-oil sectors and what we intend to spend. And and this deficit has increased significantly to about 5 trillion naira. Ladies and gentlemen, the bulk of that 5 trillion naira deficit that needs to be financed has to be financed by way of debt. We already are in a situation where our debt profile is significant. The cost of servicing that debt is very, very high. It ranges from time to time between 50 and 60% of our revenues. For you to be using 50 to 60% of your revenues for debt service purposes, it means that our economy is particularly fragile. It means that not enough money is available for investment in physical infrastructure, not enough money is available to invest in social infrastructure, healthcare, and education. So this conversation today is about education. Education is grossly underfunded because the government is not generating sufficient enough funds. So what are the things that we need to do to reverse this cycle? Because this is a 60-year cycle that we've been dealing with, right? To what extent and for how long are we going to continue to borrow for the purposes of funding or meeting our infrastructure deficits? My view is that there is a need to recalibrate this economy. We need to take certain critical steps to be able to invite local as well as foreign direct investments that will be channeled into the specific areas of physical infrastructure. Let a lot of government resources, government revenues, let it be channeled towards social infrastructure. Physical infrastructure can be funded through the PPP models, through the concessioning arrangements. So there are various ways we can do this. But if you have a situation where we are borrowing aggressively for physical infrastructure. So for example, we have built some railways, we are building rail lines, we now have an Abuja to Kaduna rail link. But what is the cost of the train tickets? Are they cost reflective? Are we generating sufficient enough revenues to maintain the rolling stock? Are we generating sufficient enough revenues to pay for the staff who are managing this? So we are using borrowed money to invest in physical infrastructure, but we are running them in a suboptimal manner and not generating enough money to keep the services running and also be able to service the cost of debt. So there is something fundamental that needs to be reworked. There is something fundamental that needs to be reworked. When I get to my recommendations, I will speak some more to this. Very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, we've spoken about COVID-19. You know, this thing caught the entire world unawares, and everybody, every nation, every economy is reeling from the impact of COVID-19. If you look to the left, to the column on the left-hand column of my presentation, you will see what is happening to economies. Advanced economies are expected to decline by an average of 7% this year. The US 6.1% GDP decline, in the Eurozone 9.1%, the Japanese about 6.1%. Then you come down to Nigeria, I had mentioned 4.4% is the general estimate of the level of economic contraction that we're likely to face this year as a result of COVID-19, as a result of its impact on commodity prices. The bottom left-hand corner of my slide, you will see what has happened to commodity prices this year. Crude oil, which is the mainstay in terms of foreign exchange inflows into Nigeria, has taken a 50% hit. Coal has suffered, natural gas has suffered. These are 2 or 3 areas in which Nigeria is an active player, particularly in crude oil and gas. Nigeria is an active player, so you can immediately see why our revenues have taken the kind of hits that they have taken. So it is very, very important for us to look at this crisis. You know, they say that we should never allow a good crisis to go to waste. So to what extent can we wean our nation away from these commodities whose price and quantities we have little or no control over? Can we move from primary production and export into value value addition, such that we are exporting higher value products so that we can generate sufficient enough resources and expand the scope of the market that is available to purchase such goods and services. Very, very quickly, COVID-19, the Nigeria story. Sadly, you can see the trajectory of the graph. Not very good news. A lot of Nigerians have lost their lives. The rate of infection is still rising. What has the government response to COVID-19 been? Government has come up with a series of fiscal and monetary policy measures aimed to cushion the adverse effect of this. Government has embarked on an aggressive stimulus package to pump a lot of money into the economy, to support the real sector, to support the SME space, to support the healthcare space. So there is a lot of activity that is going on. Unfortunately, government has to rely on even more borrowing. We need to borrow at least $11 billion today, this year, to augment the shortfall in our revenues. What that will do, ladies and gentlemen, is that it will take our debt profile from $84 billion that it is today to about $95 billion. That is quite significant, and the cost of servicing the debt will be very, very huge, and the Nigerian people have to struggle with that. Fortunately, in the middle of this crisis, certain things have been done that government has finally done certain things that a lot of individuals have been clamoring for a very long time. We've seen the removal of fuel subsidy, even though what I would like to see is a complete deregulation of the sector. Government is talking about cost-reflective tariffs for the power sector. Government is talking about interventions in critical sectors. And what you have in front of you is some of the policy responses from CBN in their wearing their monetary policy hat. I see some movement in the realignment of our exchange rates. We now have two principal rates, 360 being the official rate, 385 or so being the market determined rate. I look forward to the day where there is a consolidation of both rates so that we can start to attract foreign direct investments as the global economy starts to rebound. The government has come up with a 2 trillion naira economic sustainability plan. I think it is good, but I also believe that it is simply rehashing a lot of what is contained inside the ERGP that Ndidi alluded to. Perhaps we should be asking ourselves, we are never short of policy initiatives. We have always struggled with implementation. So what is our scorecard with regard to the implementation of the ERGP? I doubt if we will score up to 40% in terms of implementation. So I think it's important that as we seek to continue with policy development and all of that, it is important that we hold government accountable with regard to tangible and measurable implementation. Let there be timelines, let there be consistent feedback from the people. So I'm talking about advocacy now. We need to hold government accountable. Everything government says they will do, we need to ensure that somebody is engaging with government. I'm running critically out of time, so I will just run through what I consider to be critical opportunity areas. The oil and gas sector, yes, it has been somewhat of an albatross as well as a savior for Nigeria. The opportunities are still there. We just need to reform we need to significant reform, particularly in terms of policy. So the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill and the 3 other bills that need to transform this sector to make it commercially orientated, to make it more attractive to local and international investors. Something needs to be done about that. Agro processing, the government has done a lot of work in this area. Primary production and processing, a lot more needs to be done. A lot of the intervention funds, we are only seeing 20-30% drawdown on some of these facilities. So it's important that the terms and conditions are relaxed to allow a lot more Nigerians to be able to access this. ICT, it goes without saying, COVID-19 has opened our eyes where Nigerians are doing amazing things. We are creative, we are passionate, we are highly intellectual, and you can see the growth and the improvement and the significant contribution to GDP. I think ICT sector contributes about 11 or 12% to GDP, even more than oil and gas. So you can see the significant opportunity that exists in that area and how we need to do a lot more. Solid mineral development, it goes without saying, but again, let's move from primary production to value addition. Education, a lot is going to be said about this. Manufacturing, government is committing a stimulus package of 100 billion naira to this. Healthcare, the same thing. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to run through my thought processes. This is the final slide, so I apologize for going out of time. Critical things we need to do: fully deregulate the sector, sort out the regulatory framework so that the overbearing nature of the NNPC and the opacity of NNPC can be broken down and replaced with a more transparent system and structure. Number two, significantly reduce our recurrent expenditure. 5 trillion naira worth of expenditure, of which maybe about 3.6, 3.7 trillion of it goes to recurrent expenditure, salaries, wages, and overheads. PwC did a report late last year saying that just about 400,000 federal government employees essentially consume up to 3.6 trillion naira of the national budget. Clearly, something needs to be done. The government has mentioned the willingness to open up the Oronsaye report. We need a lot of activity. We need urgency in that. We need to rationalize ministries, departments, and agencies. I've spoken about the need to unify the FX market, ease of doing business rankings. A lot has been done in this area. Some movement has been made. There's still a lot of work to do. Debt accumulation, I've said, let us engage private sector participation, PPPs and concessions. Finally, let us privatize a lot of the state-owned enterprises that have constituted a significant drain pipe on the national treasury. This is time to bring in private sector participation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So rich and a lot of insights. Thank you, Mr. Bayorotimi. I know so many of you have questions for him. I'd encourage you to go to the Q&A box and start putting in those questions, directing them to him, and he'll try and answer as many as possible. And obviously, there's some that he'll answer at the end of all the panels. All the panelists when they've all spoken. So thank you. The insights have been tremendous, Mr. Rotimi. And my key takeaway from you is there's a lot of work to be done in every single sector. There are some foundational issues that we have to address as a country, which really underscores the critical role of education. Because if you don't have an empowered and educated workforce with the right tools and skills and enabling environment, this country can't take off. I also like your charge to all of us to hold governments accountable, to ensure that private sector leads, and to push for the transformation that we expect to see. So much work, so much work. I mean, I have many, many questions about where to start, but I know we'll address them at the end of this, at the end of all the panels. So I'm gonna invite our next distinguished panelist, Dr. Sam Ikoku, so that we can move swiftly along. So we wanna leave as much time for questions as possible. Dr. Ikoku is a managing consultant, CEO of Nakachi Consulting, and he's going to be talking to us about opportunity in a crisis, the future of education, and the role of technology. Dr. Sam Ikoku has been a leader from the Haggai Institute since 2002. He's a productivity consultant with over 33 years of experience as the managing consultant and CEO of Nakachi Consulting. He's engaged in training, facilitation for ministries and agencies. He has a long-standing interest in technology-driven disruption and has been working on this for over 20 years, looking at the emergence of voice-over internet protocols, looking at the role of financing and customer service in education, and how to drive disruption. He's a serial entrepreneur, a private equity investor, an author, a husband, a father, and a proud grandfather. We're so delighted to have Dr. Sam Ikoku with us, and we'll now pass it over to you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm hoping that we'll meet the objectives of the AiMP. I thank AiMP for inviting me to be a part of this. I feel a change in the country is happening already, and I'm delighted to be a part of it. I hope everyone can see my presentation. Can you?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, excellent. All right, so I'm just going to run through this and try and be conscious of the time so we can have more time to address other issues. Great. So the first thing I'd like to say is a big welcome to everyone who's here today, whoever you are, wherever you're signing in from. I know your intention is to help build a great nation, to take advantage of the opportunities in this crisis. I will be looking at education from a human capital development perspective, because my topic is on opportunity in a crisis, the future of education, and the role of technology. The aim is for us to be able to seize this opportunity to redesign civilization, with a focus on education as a component of that. The disruption in pre-work education has been quite interesting, and essentially because educational institutions knew that change was inevitably going to be driven largely by technology, but no one expected that it will happen so suddenly. The result of that has been that schools were literally looking at a 3 to 4 year timeline that was eliminated overnight. Caught in mid-session, they have had to hurriedly put up some temporary solutions. Surprisingly though, instead of persevering along this line, many schools are still longing for a return to normal. Instead of developing a long-term educational infrastructure, months later, they are still patching together open source and totally inadequate solutions. We also see a lot of disruption in the workplace education itself. Basically, what we see is technology has meant disruption in many industries. In hospitality, we've seen Airbnb. In medicine, we've seen computer wearables. In transportation, we've seen Uber. In telecommunications, voice over internet protocol. Banking and finance, we have digital banking. In manufacturing, we have 3D printing, just to name a few that are causing massive disruptions in industry. We all have a front seat right now to see witness what's happening in terms of change in the education sector. We notice a few things. We notice digitization, disruption, demonetization, dematerialization, and democratization. I will not have time to go into all of this, but I'm sure we can tell what they really mean, because now we're digitizing everything, which is disrupting everything. We are demonetizing, which means we can start a school, we can start an educational enterprise for almost nothing at all. Dematerialization, we don't need to have physical infrastructure or paperwork to push education, and democratization in the sense that anyone can come into the education sector. The same conditions we notice in companies experiencing exponential growth. The question is, can traditional educational institutions transition fast enough? Can they transition fast enough? Because the onslaught from competition is going to come from technology companies and not traditional educational institutions. The disruption in workplace education. Now, in the workplace, education is usually referred to as capacity building. Before now, this has been basically inadequate, especially in public service, where there are motivations other than the actual capacity building itself. The challenge here is to get older people who are more set in their ways to adapt to online learning, for which a more robust learning management system is required. Again, we see how technology companies can seize the advantage of this highly lucrative aspect of workplace education. And the question here is, can HR departments, training firms, and consulting practices transition fast enough to ensure their competitors do not use this aspect of capacity building to achieve decisive advantage over them. The opportunity to merge, we have an opportunity now to merge pre-work and workplace education. Let me explain that a little bit. Our educational system was built for the second and third industrial revolutions. As the workplace has transformed, we're producing more graduates on feet for today's workplace. And because of this, you can see all over the world, there's a rise in a number of corporate universities. And here are just a few examples. We have Allianz in Indonesia Corporate University, Beeline University in Russia, Defense Acquisition University in USA, Edcon Academy in South Africa. We have Gas Natural Corporate University in Spain. We have Tenerife University. We have Valouré in France. We have Valais-Ville. So many universities are coming up because they need to have people that are suitable for the workplace today. And surprisingly, you'll see here embassies of Republic of Namibia and United Republic of Tanzania. I think Nigeria should focus on doing this as well in terms of achieving competitive advantage. It's such a growing trend that we now have a global council of corporate universities. And I think that's worthy of note. This is a great opportunity we all have to redesign education curriculum. One of the panelists will be speaking a little bit more about that. For the first time, pre-work from kindergarten to university and workplace training have the same objectives. Done right, this can affect national competitiveness. To prepare people for the workplace of the fourth industrialization is the only objective that matters right now. And to do that, because it's a cyber machine world, no one can project what the outcome will be. That is why education has to focus on two basic things: learning how to learn and behavior engineering. That's what we have to teach the people that are going through the workforce today, from kindergarten all the way to workplace capacity building. They must learn how to learn, and they must master behavior engineering. They must have the mental acuity to adapt to changes faster than they've ever done before. I agree with Yuval Noah Harari, one of the most profound thinkers of our time, who says that if in the past education was like building a stone house with very deep foundations, now I would say that education is more like constructing a tent that you can fold up and move to another location very easily, very quickly. For the first time in history, we don't know what specific skills to teach young people because we just don't know in what kind of world they will be living in. Now, this is serious food for thought, and all of us should be a part of this because, you know, it's our country, it's our world, it's our people. Notice the rise in the number of corporate universities. Again, like I said, it's very important that we see that the workplace is saying we don't have the right people to build our companies, and we need to do something about that. So what are some of the opportunities that emerge from this disruption? Now look at them, look at some of them very quickly. In terms of infrastructure, we need to develop learning management systems and infrastructure. This basically has to do with software engineering, massive cloud services, video on demand infrastructure, and payment integration. Also, there should be a look at facility repurposing, as we can see happening with banks. Once some of the schools no longer have to have students in the physical location, the question now becomes, what do you do with the real estate? And I think that they can be transformed into inner city, into SME hubs, especially inner city schools where people don't have to go too far, can be transformed into SME hubs, which creates another opportunity for the owners of those properties. Then there's an opportunity in broadband extension infrastructure like multi-channel, multi-point distribution systems. If we're to reach the 40% of the Nigerians who are not educated, because they mostly live in suburban and rural areas. And there are many emerging opportunities today that government is giving for one to be able to take advantage of that. Second area is in content development. When it comes to content development, we need to look at content development for both the different levels of education, all the way to workplace capacity building. This is where we build content material based on curriculums, and then schools can subscribe, so that you're seeing that running a school is becoming even more dematerialized and demonetized. And by just getting a subscription, you can offer education to your own catchment area where you can develop the schooling system and so on. Everything built in the sky, like what we say, sky schools, driven off a subscription model. Under the area of curriculum and reach, it's also easy because you now have there's an opportunity to create corporate business schools. I'm happy about what Dr. Nalama said about the African university they're trying to set up. And this is in the right direction. International expansion of student base, for example, our secondary schools. If we're using the West African Examination Council for all of West Africa, why should schools be limited to just Nigeria or just one city or just one state? It's time to reach out across national borders in the whole of ECOWAS sub-region, for example. There will be opportunities in financing as well. Educational franchises, mergers and acquisition of schools would happen. There's opportunity in the leasing of equipment, education-related equipment, which is basically computers and tablets, home capacity inkjet printers, television set-top boxes. And then there's an opportunity for educational loans, where with the recession, parents are going to need bridge financing, especially for final year students. And then the digital corridor itself, platform and content development. There's also an opportunity for original equipment manufacturers, producing computers, tablets, whiteboards, video production equipment, smart sports, televisions. With 200 million people, there's a huge, huge opportunity here for all those who would like to consider doing that. And I'd like to end up by looking at the opportunities for Christian evangelism. This technology disruption is creating opportunities there as well. Now, evangelism is education, straight and simple. Sharing the good news is education. How is this being impacted by technology, and what are the opportunities inherent in this? Basically, we know that technology drives freedom, and we know that freedom has a destructive component. We've seen that in societies today. At least 18 centuries of Christian values have been eroded in the last 25 years. It correlates with technology disruption and permissive leadership. There will be no reversal, and trying to do that is as futile as trying to discipline water flowing downhill. You can't reason with it, plead with it, appeal to it, and you can't legislate it. You can only channel it. And so I think there's an opportunity here for those of us who are here gathered today, and those of us who can help influence government thinking, apostles in the marketplace, AiMP, sorry, and others must now step into the channelization of social systems and values. We need to move from retail evangelism to platform evangelism if we stand any chance of merging Christian values, societal values, and governance processes. Some of that is happening as we sponsor Christians into political office. That is why the apostles in the marketplace seek to own the service content platforms that embed Christian values, as online education will create value-neutral citizens. We must have influence over the curriculum using a curriculum plus approach, similar to what the missionary schools brought into the country in the 19th century. This gives apostles in the marketplace tremendous new growth opportunities. I have a few suggestions on ways to move forward. I don't believe we have much time for me to cover that, but there are ways to move forward. But here's something for all of us right now. The recent Economic Sustainability Plan gives us the perfect backdrop to acquire matching funds, to influence government policy, and to easygate new economic realities in a country that is brazenly biased about religion. It's time to visit non-interest banking, which was first developed in the 16th century by Christians, failed for 3 reasons. Today we have Islamic banks. It's time to bring Christian banks forward if we're going to really affect the agenda. In conclusion, I hope I have been able to give us all a better appreciation of the future of education and the role of technology. I pray everyone leaves here with a better appreciation of what they can do in terms of making the most of this new normal. To the apostles in the marketplace who have put this program together, I'm so grateful. And I just want to say, despite everything you're doing, We're born for a time like this. This is a time to seize the marketplace or just go home. Thank you for this opportunity. God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ikoku. I love your concluding remarks. This is a new normal, and we have to embrace it. Seize the day, seize the opportunities, not just in terms of our infrastructure, but our curriculum, the financing, the growth opportunities available to us to think globally, to think regionally, to leverage what we have in-house. This population of 200 million presents us with a fantastic platform. And I like how you zeroed in on the role of the faith-based organizations. I completely agree with you that there's so much more we can be doing with our faith-based organizations as critical tools for addressing the digital divide, but also the serious educational challenges we face. So thank you so much, Dr. Sam Ikoku. We've just had some so rich presentations from both Mr. Bayo Rotimi and Dr. Sam Ikoku, and I think both of them deserve a virtual round of applause. I'm clapping where I am, and I'm sure everybody's clapping for the hard work that both of you put into these presentations and the depth of the content and the insights. Thank you so much. The questions are coming in. I see the Q&A box filling up. So can I ask you to please continue to send your questions in to both Mr. Bayo Rotimi and Dr. Sam Ikoku. These questions are critical because we are recording them as AiMP. They're feeding into what we're going to be discussing during the Q&A, which will be led by Bolaji Osime, but they're also going to feed into future work that we can do as a network. So please continue to send in those questions. They're very, very, very critical. I think both Dr. Sam Ikoku and Mr. Bayo Rotimi have presented a wonderful foundation for our next speaker, who is a phenomenal change agent in the education sector. And a dear friend of mine, someone who I consider a mentor and a friend, Mrs. Shade Adefisayo. She's the Honorable Commissioner, Ministry of Education, Lagos State. And Mrs. Adefisayo is just a gift to Lagos State. You know, when she assumed this role, we were so excited because we had worked with her through her multiple roles, not only as the head of the Corona Schools Trust Council, but also as a teacher and as a school principal at Corona. So we knew that she had exactly what we needed in the sector. Usually you have people who don't have experience being appointed to roles that are not well suited, but this was a perfect fit, and we were also excited. She holds a BSc in zoology from the University of Ibadan, an MBA from the University of Lagos, PGC education from the University of Nottingham, MA education from the same university. She started off in the private sector, wearing many, many hats in Tetra Pak and other places where I met her, before she delved into education fully and served with the Corona Schools Trust Council for 13 years. And I was privileged to visit her many times to see the love that her students had for her and the faculty had for her as well. She also served as an education consultant, helping many, many states with their reforms. She's dedicated to improving people's lives. She serves as a volunteer for many NGOs, the Society for the Blind, Volunteer Co., Owando Foundation, Teach for Nigeria, SWOT Talks. She serves on boards of many, many schools and many, many groups, governing boards for 4 schools and 5 nonprofit organizations. And she's just one bundle of energy. And I'm just so, so proud that we have Mrs. Adefisayo with us this morning or this afternoon. So I'll pass it over to her. Dr. I'm calling you Dr. Folashade Adefisayo. Good morning, good afternoon. Please take it over.
Thank you. Good afternoon. A lot of people call me doctor. Well, I always say amen to that. Maybe someday, but for now, I'm plain Mrs. Adefisayo. So please give me a minute while I share my slides. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I seem to be having some difficulty, and that's because I'm using my iPad instead of a laptop, and it's refusing to pull up Microsoft PowerPoint from the laptop. I don't know what I can do. Maybe can I send it to someone while I start talking? Can I send my slides to someone in the group?
Yes,
okay.
Please.
Who should I send it to? I'll send it to Bolaji. Can I send it to you?
Send it to Adura.
Adura. Okay, I'll do that right away. All right.
Adura at
Yeah, just a minute.
.org.
Okay, please give me a minute. Adura's website is not Adura told me Etuk. Yeah. Okay.
So we just posted it on the chat, Mr. Adefisayo.
No, I've seen it.
Okay, perfect.
I've seen Adura. All right, that's all right. So I've sent it. Please let me know when you get it. Thank you. So let me start by thanking you. Ndidi, thank you for very kind comments. You're also my mentor because you've taught me a lot of things, and I will always appreciate my relationship with you. I thank AiMP for inviting me. I'm very sorry I've been an uncooperative panelist because I've not attended enough of the early sessions, but I think I was traveling around the state and I just got too tired every evening. So having said that, I would like to start with the preamble. When I was actually schools, and when I was asked to talk about this, I had to reminisce on my own. I had certain ideas. I had all the slides. So the main problems with education in Nigeria, access, equity, quality, relevance, I had all those slides and I could talk through them easily. But having worked there for a while, I can see that the questions are so deep. The issues are so deep and they will require a lot of work. It's not good. And so what I'm going to do here is not to make you, I hope I make you feel terribly unhappy about what is happening. And I hope I make you want to be part of making a change. I think that's what I think I can do, that all of us have to realize that Lagos State's slogan is that inclusive governance for all, and it is true that I hated the slang, oh, government can't do it all alone. I disliked it. I said, well, we pay our taxes. You do what you're supposed to do. But I can see that the lack of investment over many years, the deterioration and the dereliction over many years is so enormous, and nobody is waiting for us to catch them. And so it's got to be a concerted effort by as many people as possible. Thank you. So having stated that as my preamble,
Can you send me the slides because we haven't received them? Can you send them to me?
Yes. You haven't received the slides?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay. Let me send them to you. Okay. I did send. Sorry, just give me a minute. I think because I'm nervous, send to your first. I think I'm going to do something. Put it onto my iPhone and then I'll send it to you, because I find that the iPhone is more efficient than. And I'm really sorry that we're going through all this. It's not reflective of the fact that my skills have gone down since I got into public service. It's just.
We know that you're dealing with so much at the moment, so we completely understand. We completely understand.
It's just that my life is completely topsy-turvy. Thank you.
No worries. We understand.
My life is completely topsy-turvy, and my days are just very strange indeed. Okay, I think I've opened it here, and okay. So now I'm going to send the copy. Can I send it with WhatsApp? I can send it with WhatsApp. So I'm sending to Adura and Ndidi on WhatsApp.
Okay. Apologies, but I would say that if all else fails, please keep talking. You're a very strong speaker. You don't need slides. So if all else fails, please continue.
Yeah. No, I'm going to keep talking.
Okay.
You don't allow the technology to get you down. So having said that, that's my objective. I will talk about, the slides. I'll take you through the slides, and I am also going to be quoting the people who spoke before me. I hope I'm not plagiarizing, but I totally enjoyed the presentation and all the presentations, and I think they all have something to do with me. So having said that, according to Davos West, the fourth industrial revolution refers to how new technologies like artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, and the Internet of Things are merging with humans' physical lives and are changing the way we live, work, and interact with each other. So that is a powerful statement that talks about what the fourth industrial revolution is all about. And for students for the workforce of tomorrow to thrive, to be able to operate, to be able to be successful in this environment, they need to have a minimum of certain skills. First, we start with, of course, workplace readiness. Apart from the fact that we have to teach them literacy, numeracy, digital literacy, how to write, how to present, they have to have soft skills of communication, critical thinking, creative thinking, personal leadership. They have to have technical skills because you must be properly digitally literate, not the ability to use WhatsApp or PowerPoint, but the ability to program, to develop apps, to project manage. And of course, they have to be entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurship is not about setting up a business, it's a mindset of initiative, of innovation, of creativity, of industriousness. So how do you get a human being, a single human being, to embody all these? Other societies have done it. Other environments have done it. So why can't we? Right now, there are certain things that are not allowing us to move forward, to get to where we should be. First of all, there's equity. And this is where I said I want to make us all a bit unhappy, because all of us on this platform are in a certain socioeconomic bracket. That means that we do not really understand. And you may say you do, but I assure you that you do not really understand what it is like to live in another socioeconomic bracket, especially among the extremely poor. And as long as we have these inequities in our system, we are setting ourselves up for massive social and economic problems. We are setting ourselves up for social problems of a magnitude that we will not be able to understand. When there will be a small cohort that understands the fourth industrial revolution and 90-something% who are totally out of it. So there's equity. We are bedeviled by lack of access. In Lagos State, for instance, we've always known that we do not have enough schools. We have 1,000 primary schools for a population of 20 million or thereabouts. Clearly, that is inadequate. So what you found is that there's been a springing up of schools that we call low-cost schools that actually are possibly even worse than what we think public schools are about. And that is a massive problem that we have to address. Is either we improve their quality or we ensure that we build more schools. And of course, the problem with Lagos, when I found, I was always a critic of not building enough schools. But I now found that land is such a premium that getting land to build schools is very, very difficult. And not just that land is a premium, the state is small in terms of size, and therefore there's just not enough land. The terrain is very unfriendly. There are huge swathes of Lagos that are more or less marshland. And so there are access problems. There is funding. Like I told someone, even if the whole budget of Lagos State were given to education, I'm not sure we would solve all the problems. Funding has been inadequate over the years, and this has meant that focus has essentially been on just like the iceberg, just what's peeping out on the surface. So at the end of the day, there's been little focus on schools, especially in far off areas. I just got back from a journey to Bejuleki, Ekpe, Badagry, and I just couldn't, you just can't wrap your mind around it, that a child in some of these areas has never seen a television set. And I'm not, never. I remember that I first saw a television set in the early 60s. And a child born in the 21st century has never seen a television set. So the funding has really not addressed the real issues. And therefore we have a massive funding gap. And and you remember what Mr. Rotimi said about the economy? The economy is in such, the reality is in such a state that how do we build an educational system that will be nimble and be able to address all the problems we need to address when we have this severe economic situation? And of course, there's relevance. So what we now find is that education is not relevant to many of many poor people. When I was volunteering at Junior Achievement, I was talking to my girls. I was in a girls' school. Girls, we need to go to school. You can't finish here. The pipeline to early pregnancy and so on. I tried to fight it. Then one of them called me and said, why do you want us to go to university? What's the point? My sister, she went to UI. My mother sent her to UI. My mother sells pepper under the bridge. All the family resources were diverted into sending my sister. That when she's done, she will get a good job and send the rest of us. My sister has finished 5 years now, no job. So she's back under the bridge selling pepper with my mother. Why don't I just hurry up, finish this, learn to read and write an invoice, add money, subtract money, and go back to Obalendi and start selling pepper again? I was touched to the core of my being because I knew then that what she was doing in school, she didn't feel was relevant to her future. And of course, quality. Quality issues are massive. Quality of teachers, quality of infrastructure, quality of teacher training, quality of everything, all the inputs that we have into education. And so this is the environment we find ourselves. Can we build a fourth industrial age workforce with this system? Because we must remember that whatever we do, even if we are targeting the top students and so on, we must remember the voiceless majority. We can address the problems of the vociferous minority, but we have to remember the voiceless majority because they are going to be the people that will build that will be the building blocks of whatever we want to do with the fourth industrial revolution. So I ask us all again, can we? Obviously we can't. I mean, there's no question about it. And I've thought and said, what are this? Because we have to go for solutions. The reality is depressing and frightening. I was joking with a young friend. I said, maybe I should give up and come to Canada, go to some university, join in petty issues about education, fight over grammatical errors in presentations and so on. And because this seems impossible, but it is not impossible. It is doable. And one of the first things that we have to address is inclusion of all stakeholders. Where you are, I mean, we have to include everybody because there's no way we can solve this problem if we say, oh, it's government or it's the private sector. Some governments have actually abdicated responsibility to development partners. Development partners have nothing much at stake. We have all at stake. Is the future of our children, is the future of our country, is our success, and therefore it's up to us. So the inclusion of everybody, we've got to all look at this solution together. And there must be a paradigm shift. I still would like to say it, that we must be willing to see and do things differently. That's why I totally enjoyed what Mr. Ikoku said about the fact that a lot of schools, you have to democratize. I've forgotten his D's. You have to send that to Mr. Ikoku. That was interesting. So democratize, demonetize, and so on school. Must school be in a particular building? Are there not many ways by which we can teach children? You know, we all have to think differently. But to do that, we all have to have these conversations. And we have to move out of a certain mindset. Because up till now, like he said, schools are fighting seriously to open schools and asking government to be willing. In fact, there was a group that asked us to allow them to start school. And then they added the caveat, should there be any consequences that arise as a result of opening schools, we should support them. We must have a paradigm shift. It's time to think differently. We must, I keep saying it, we must, in this thinking, we have to show how every child in Nigeria can learn. I don't think we should do this without remembering equity. You can say, look, these hordes of people are so many, they will overwhelm you. And they have a right to it, don't they? They are Nigerians as well. So we must be equitable and we must learn I think the fourth thing that I've taken from everything that has happened since I got into government is that we have to learn from this COVID pandemic. You can't say something is good with so many lives gone, but it has also opened up so many opportunities. And like Didi said, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. We do not want to waste this crisis. We have to redesign a lot of the things that we are doing. So I'll put that, but I'm going to come back to it, that this solution is an enabling environment. We have to provide an environment within which we can change. And the only way we can change is if we change our thinking. If we still confine ourselves to our own narrow way, to, oh, my children have gone to school in America, and so what's, if they're going to come back, who are they going to work with? Who are they going to live with? And believe it or not, they can marry your daughters if you are not careful, because they are very streetwise and yours are not. So let's go and talk. So I looked at it and said, well, they did say three things: reskilling, retooling, re-educating. So reskilling, I think, first of all, we have to, so it's clear to me that we must have these conversations. We must hold government accountable. I'm a member of government. I want you to say, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, for instance, when we started, when the COVID pandemic started and we were giving out radio, we started doing radio classes. People were very angry with me. In this day and age of internet, when children have WhatsApp, when children have iPad, when they have this, I'm talking about children who, like I said, have never seen a television. They don't even have radios. Eventually, we got to a point where we found that they do not even have access to radios. And we started crowdfunding in the office, crowdfunding from friends and relatives. And we now have, I'm picking up 10,000 radios on Monday from the committee of, called COUSLO, the wives of Lagos State public officials. I've gone to everybody. So we are going to pick up radios and give these children. So it's clear that we need to rethink. I'll keep saying this. We need to be specific and intentional about providing practical and application-based education. To do that, we need to talk to ourselves. This is not private schools, public schools. This is not about corporate organization. This is everybody. The teaching is the mother of all professions. If there's no engineer who did not go to school, you could not have been born into this world knowing maths. Somebody taught you maths. Somebody taught you physics. Mr. Bayo Rotimi, I totally enjoyed your paper. Somebody taught you finance. You were not born as a financial guru. Somebody taught you. So teaching is the mother of all inventions and therefore of all careers. And therefore we need to sit together, everybody in this country, talking about education. I'm not sure if I've been practical enough, but I still think we need to reskill. And in reskilling, we have to be specific about what we want. And that means everybody has got to say, this is what we want. There are times, I was in the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. We tried to talk to the private sector once. Look, this sector, finance, what do you want? Manufacturing, what do you want? So that we can use that to design a curriculum. But this time we have to be intentional about it, not talking. We talk too much and I'm bored with talking. The other thing is we have to retool. And I'll put it into various questions. What do we teach? What are we supposed to teach our students? What curriculum are we supposed to offer them? Nobody, we cannot say I'm doing British curriculum. The British designed their curriculum in order to build a British child. And therefore we have to design our curriculum to build a Nigerian child who is going to function effectively in the fourth industrial revolution, not some pseudo Yimbo child. So the curriculum, what subjects are we going to teach them? How are we going to integrate all the core skills that they need, the key skills that I mentioned earlier? How do we integrate these into the curriculum? How do we build character? So we stop a pipeline from school to thuggery, from school to hooliganism, from school to early pregnancy, from school to certain poverty. How do we do that? How do we build character? How do we include Tibet? How do we make schools relevant to communities? I've always wondered. How, like I went to a community, they gave me so much fish, I didn't know what to do with that. Give it out. But they do a lot with fishing. Why isn't there why aren't the schools in that area learning about how modern fishery? I went to a market in Ekpe, I saw crocodiles, I saw this, I saw that. So all these things are, why don't we have people in aquaculture? Why aren't we focusing on that in that area? So, and I'm not asking you to answer the question. I'm not saying that I'm absolving government of this. I am part of it. And these are the questions I'm asking my people as well. I cannot preside in this place, work in this place, and then at the end of it all, these questions still continue to arise. So I hope that you know that these are things that eat me up and that we are working on. So who teaches? We have to have passionate and educated people teaching. And they've got and trained by modern teacher tutors. Because when you go to our universities where they are teaching people about education, then you know that I don't know what they are teaching. They are teaching theory. They are not teaching the practice of it. So many people who come to us who say they are teachers, they are practically useless in the classroom until we've taken them through a lot of training. So who teaches? We have to build up the teaching profession. People talk, oh, Lagos State, the teachers are well paid. This is, the teachers are better paid anyway than the run of the mill, than most private schools. I won't tell you how much a level 8 teacher is paid, but I assure you that when an organization that teaches, that sends volunteers to schools came to Lagos, this was the only state where they didn't have to subsidize teachers' salaries. So doing that, how do we turn them into passionate educators? And let me tell you something about leadership. You see, this whole period, people talk about these teachers are not good. A lot of them have set up their own classes, free, online, on Telegram, on WhatsApp, on radio. A lot of our teachers, it's been fantastic. And I'm following some on Telegram who are teaching maths every day, English every day. So all they needed was somebody to say, look, let's do this. Number C, how do we teach? Which is, of course, related to who teaches. That is where we've got to give them superb skills. And what resources do we need? IT and so on, teaching aids. And where do we teach? For me, that is a critical question. And that is why I loved Mr. Ikoku's paper where he talked about the fact that we are still looking at school as a building. When last did you go to church? Have you seen that church is not a building? But church is in your mind, it's in your heart. Church can be anywhere because of the ubiquity of modern technology. Church can be anywhere you want it to be. And so I think we've got, in education, we have to start moving towards that. Please, I'm rounding up. I can hear somebody. So how then re-educating, I've said it, collective roadmap, find out what successful countries with minimal resources did. They focused on education.
So Honorable Commissioner is still there because I can't hear her. Ms. Adefisai, are you still there?
She may have muted her phone without knowing. I think she muted her phone. So she needs to unmute her phone.
Okay.
Somebody needs to tell her to unmute her phone.
Mr. Adefisai, we can't hear you anymore. Well, while we're waiting for her to come back on, I just want to encourage you to keep on sending in your questions. Fantastic presentation given by Mr. Adefisayo, and we really have learned so much from her. Very, very practical opportunities for collaboration, opportunities for engagement, the importance of equity, lots of great insights, phenomenal leadership by a commissioner. Let me see, let's see, can the AiMP network try to get her back in? Because she might have dropped off.
Okay. She might have dropped off, yes. So Adura is engaging with her.
Fantastic insights and phenomenal contributions. I think I have learned so much, and she's really woven the presentations from Mr. Rotimi and Dr. Ikoku together. And I think she was getting to a place where I was really excited about the role of faith-based organizations, the fact that we don't need to be in a physical building, the role that all of us can play from our own sphere of influence, either as corporates or individuals, entrepreneurs, to contribute to this critical need to educate our people. I mean, Lagos State is a microcosm of Nigeria, but if you can address these challenges in Lagos State, you can address them everywhere else. So I'm just so excited about some of the insights she shared and some of the lessons learned. I particularly took on the challenge of educating people in agriculture and the need to collaborate more with the Ministry of Education to see how we can reform the curriculum and have very, very practical education in agriculture. So let's give her a few more minutes. I tried her number and it was busy, so it means she's talking
I'm
to
back.
Duray. Oh, you're back. Fantastic. We lost you for a second. We loved your
So I was
passion.
talking to myself. Fantastic.
Yes, we loved
Oh
you.
dear, it's gone off again.
No, we have the screen back
So
on,
I
and
think
you
I'm
were
almost done.
real.
Where
Yeah.
was I? Where did you lose me?
Well, you were talking about how education is no
It's
longer
gone
in
off again.
classrooms.
Hello?
No, we can hear you.
Hello?
How we can hear you, Mrs. Adefisayo. We can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Okay, I thought I had even finished. I said thank you.
Wow.
But where did you lose me? Where did you lose me?
The last line you talked about was we need to think about education not longer in classrooms alone. That, you know, you were referencing Dr. Ikoku's statement, and you were a very passionate presenter. So please don't stop. Go ahead.
Well, I think having said that, I think where I was saying that we really, really have to rethink education. And I still think, I think I was here just trying to round up and saying, going back again and saying, we must include everybody. We must have a paradigm shift. We must be equitable. We have to think differently. I mean, look at schools wanting to open. I don't know whether you heard me when I said that they are asking that we give them like a caveat that should any consequences arise as a result of opening, we will support them.
We heard you. Yes.
And why would you want to open with that kind of cloud hovering over you? I don't know why you would want to. So I think we must understand that school just has to be different. We have to do things differently. We have to teach differently. What we are doing now is we are using the pedagogy of the normal classroom and just transferring onto the screen. So you see children sitting at Zoom from 8 to 4, listening to a teacher who is just lecturing. That is just a temporary solution and it won't work. We have to develop our own pedagogy for online instruction that will include a lot of teamwork and collaboration, minimal lectures, a lot of student self-paced learning, presentations by students, teamwork with their classmates and so on, so that it really personal research, so that they come back and share. We've got to really change the way we do many of these things. I think this is an opportunity for us to develop our own online curriculum. I'm a bit, I'm not sure that, please, can you go on? I think my final question, I want to get to the last slide, because I think this is what I really wanted to ask all of us. And I've said this, I'm not trying to say, oh, government can't do it alone, come and join us, and then we don't let you know what we want to do. We just set up a PPP Pali, and we just wanted the private sector to work with us, but to work with us on fair terms. That is to say, what are your problems? Not, we think these are your problems, because you don't know. When I was outside too, I didn't know, I assure you. But when I got inside, I knew, and I'm not, there are lots of problems. Of course, there's corruption, there's the bureaucratic system, there's the sheer cost of running government, and of course, there are all these problems of skills and abilities. But I think if people come to us on terms of, let's learn from you, what are the issues? How can we work together? Because I think at this point, I would ask that question on the screen. How are we going to vex this system, this country? How are we going to turn around the conversation in this country so that we put education on the front burner and we stop failing our students? And I'll give you my final anecdotes. I had my anecdotes down, but because it went off, I've lost touch. But the first one of my students left for Holland on A levels, and he came back. And I said, he came to see me. I said, where did we fail you? And what did we do well? Which is a question I always ask everybody. And he told me, well, when I got to the school, I was top in class in first term. By second term, I started going back. By third term, I was actually one of the poorer performers. And he said that was because in first term, they just wanted to know whether we understood basic concepts. And of course, I knew it because of the rote learning, cram and pour system here. So I was able to cram and pour, and I had lovely answers. But by the time we were asked to apply this, to go into greater detail, to research, validate research, to ask questions, he said that was where I flopped. So I think that encapsulates, doesn't it, how we are failing in this system and how we need to shift the thinking, and how technology and can be very, very great in supporting us to shift our thinking. But remember what I said. I hope that my words about equity continue to ring. Please do not think only about your children. Please remember, and to show that it's an international thing. I was studying, I'm a bit of an amateur historian, and I was studying parliamentary discussions in the UK. I know I'm boring, yeah. Parliamentary discussions in the UK in the 20s. And I found that was when the Liberal Party was dying and was being replaced by the Labour Party, which we know today. The Tories or the Conservatives were there. The Labour and the Liberals and the Conservatives went to the same schools, Eton, Oxford, Cambridge. They all went to the same clubs, had the same parties, married in the same circle, and so on. And their differences were minor, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. But the Labour Party, and then the Labour Party started displacing the Liberals. And I looked at the quality of debates, and I thought it would go down because these were children of coal miners, children of teachers, children of people who were distinctly in the lower classes. But the quality of discussion was wonderful because they had been well educated. The quality, they were able to marshal their facts, state their points articulately, use proper language, and so on. And that is but what you find here is that we are concentrating on the equivalent of the Liberals and the Tories. But it must have been that the Liberals and the Tories did educate the lower classes well for them to be able to appreciate and to be able to respond by the time they got to parliamentary discussions. So it's a simplistic analysis, and with deeper analysis, I'm sure that I could say more. But I will say that's why we need to build a system where even the poorest child in this country, even the child from the most disadvantaged community, will be able to contribute to the fourth industrial revolution. So I ask again, how are we going to vex this system and put education in the front burner? It comes before everything. Nothing will succeed if we don't get this right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Adefisayo. I am clapping for you.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. I appreciate your passion, your dedication, your willingness to challenge the status quo, your leadership, your vision, and we are rooting for you and standing behind you 110%. I think everybody on this session will agree with me that we need more Mrs. Adefisayos in every single position in this country. So thank you, Madam. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for sitting through all the difficulties with technology and the challenges I'm pushing through with so much passion. We have so many questions for you and they're coming in, and so many ideas as well. So please hang with us. I'm delighted to introduce the last but not the least speaker, who is another education guru and someone who I admire tremendously, Dr. Mo Adefeso Alateju, Managing Director of the Education Partnership. She's going to be speaking to us about the rising Joseph generation, reskilling, retooling, and re-educating yourself. She's a recognized policy expert specializing in public-private partnerships. She's the Managing Director of the TEP Center, Nigeria's pioneering education partnership organization. She advises education sector policymakers. She leads streams of work in education. She trains public sector officials in strategic planning and monitoring and evaluation. She has established this Pan-African Education Innovation Summit, now in its 6th year, focused on transforming the sector. Mo is well regarded across the board in driving education and leading change. And we are just delighted to have her. She has a wealth of experience in education, has a PhD in Education and International Development from the Institute of Education, University College London. She earned a master's from the same institution. I could go on and on and on about Mo. But I'm sure that when you hear her speak, you recognize how we're so delighted to have her and how she's such a gift to our nation. So welcome, Mo.
Ndidi, thank you so much for the very, very warm welcome. I truly appreciate it, and it's great to be here. Thank you to AiMP for the invitation. Thank you for putting me after Mr. Adefisayo and after all the other distinguished speakers. But I know that God will help me regardless of my position, in this webinar. I should apologize in advance because I'm actually going to be saying very little about education today. I think that what I would like to do is focus my presentation more on my own personal reflections. My reflections as a person of faith, and also my reflections as a professional who is working in the space where we're trying to build skills to position young people for the fourth industrial revolution, and to also build the sorts of people that have values that we can be proud of. And so I will be reflecting on what I've heard today from the wonderful speakers who have gone before me, and also trying to encourage you to reflect along with me on what I'm hearing as it pertains to the Joseph generation. So I think I'm going to start my reflections from, we talk about the big theme, opportunity in a crisis. And as I was reflecting on this earlier this week, I came across this to the left of the screen. This was actually this morning. I saw this post that was put up by the World Economic Forum on LinkedIn. And it says COVID-19's impact on global supply chains will cause a recession like we have never seen before. And I think that a lot of this speaks to that which Mr. Bayo Rutimi was expounding on earlier on in his presentation. But then I shifted my mind immediately to another truth. And that truth came from Genesis 41, where Pharaoh was effectively saying, look, Joseph, you are so discerning, you are so wise. Why don't you be the head over my house? And why don't you take over the running of this nation and make sure that my people are fed and people don't go hungry? And so when I hear the term opportunity in a crisis, my mind does not immediately go to opportunity to profit selfishly. Instead, my mind goes to an opportunity to save lives, an opportunity to foster righteousness, and an opportunity to promote justice, even in the professional space that each and every single one of us occupies. What else am I hearing? I'm hearing an opportunity to deepen character. This pandemic and the situation that has necessitated this sort of conversation is an opportunity for us to deepen character. And I love to talk about character. I love to refer to something that I've coined, a term I've coined called the logic of faith. At least I think of it as the logic of faith. You see, when I was studying for my doctorate, very often I would have questions posed at me regarding why I was using the sorts of methods I was using. Why was I analyzing my data the way that I was analyzing my data? But you see, in academic research, one of the first places you start from, and the academics on this forum know exactly what I'm talking about, is a philosophical underpinning. And in adhering to that philosophical underpinning, you're maintaining fidelity to your rationale. So your methods follow that underpinning, your analysis follows that, and your results also follow your philosophical underpinning. And that is ultimately your defense when you get to your viva, where you have to defend your thesis. You start by stating the premise that has necessitated the direction that you have taken. And so the question that I'm reflecting on right now is, as a believer, what is your philosophical underpinning? And does that philosophical underpinning undergird your every thought and deed? I think it's a question to ponder over, because many of us do adhere to the faith, don't we? We adhere to one faith, which is Christianity. There might be people on this call that adhere to other faiths. But does the belief that you have truly underpin your behaviors and your attitudes? I love nature. And in recent times, I've taken to gardening, and I realized that the seed possesses the full attributes of a tree. And I remember planting a sunflower seed together with my husband and ripping a 7-foot sunflower plant whose head was bigger than mine. What does that tell me? The seed is almost identical to the tree, even though it looks different. And so character in small things is character in big things. Being faithful in little is the same as being faithful in much. And for a Joseph, and we refer to ourselves as the Joseph generation, for a Joseph to be able to say no to Potiphar's wife, he in effect had the capacity to say no to the opportunity to keep one warehouse full of grain to himself without anybody ever realizing it. At the end of the day, competence gets us to the top, but character is what will keep us there. What else am I thinking about? I'm also thinking about how the situation we find ourselves in today represents an opportunity for us to further our careers, regardless of where we are in our career. And so I'm drawing again from nature here. And a lot of us know the story of the eagle. I will be talking about the eagle, and I'll be talking about yet another tree. And I refer to the wondrous working power of adversity. And this is what some other people refer to as crisis. We know that for the eagle, a storm is not a crisis, it's actually an opportunity. And how is it an opportunity? The eagle takes the pressure of the storm and uses that to glide to higher altitudes in a matter of seconds. And so for the eagle, the storm is not a problem. The storm is an energy efficient elevation mechanism. And how do they achieve this? They are able to lock their wings in a fixed position and remain steady through the storm. They don't panic. They don't wake up worrying. They are not afraid. They are steady. And that's why the storm is simply an opportunity for them. Another example that I love so much is that of this tree called the sequoia tree. It's huge. It's actually the largest tree species on the planet. And there are some sequoias that have lived for over 3,000 years. So Jesus may have touched one or two when he was on the face of the earth. But what a lot of people don't realize is that sequoias actually rely on fire for them to survive and thrive. And how does that happen? It happens in 4 ways. 1, fire creates a hole in the forest, which allows light and water to permeate, nourishing the seedlings of the sequoia. Secondly, fire will heat the cones of the mature tree without harming the tree. It will cause the cones to open and there will be a massive deposit of seedlings on the ground. And thirdly, what does fire do? It removes the built up leaves. It burns them up so that seedlings can access the rich mineral soil that they are rooted in until that the cycle of life can begin again. And finally, the fire reduces competition. It reduces competition from other species that are likewise looking for air and for light, for water, and for mineral deposits. So adversity is a question of perspective, which I believe Mr. Nenama very eloquently spoke about at the start of this webinar. I believe very much that excellence is a learned art. We say that opportunity meeting preparation is equal to success. And my mind goes back to once upon a time when I was admitted as a fellow of an organization here in Nigeria. And as part of our fellowship, we had a 1-week residential. And as part of that residential, we had to come up with a program, a community support program that every single one in our cohort could jump on the back of. And we came into this, and in my group, only one person came prepared. Only one person came with a full business plan of a proposal that he wanted to put across to us. Needless to say, that was the only community support program that we really supported that year. And it has grown to become one of the most respected health missions, global health missions around the world that I know of. And so we also know from the field of monitoring and evaluation that activity is not the same as results. It's very easy to get up in the morning get into Lagos traffic or wherever you are, go to work, do your work and come back without reflecting on whether you're achieving the sorts of results that you were designed to. Now, just 10 years ago, if we were to have this call, we would have been using another kind of platform. But the reality is that today, that platform is severely constrained in its ability to meet global needs. And a platform like Zoom has taken over market share. And that is very closely linked to not focusing on the purpose, not focusing on the why. So again, activity does not mean that you will derive results. Results are a very deliberate process. Secondly, I'm thinking about how we hone our skills, because again, overnight success is the result of many sleepless nights, isn't it? And Malcolm Gladwell would argue that you need 10,000 hours of practice to become excellent in the field. But I'm also thinking about the reality of job cuts in Nigeria today. And over the last week, we've heard about so many people losing their jobs, both locally and again, internationally. And the fungibility of skills, these skills we're talking about, and the fungibility of the jobs that are associated with the skills. Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan as we move into the fourth industrial revolution to ensure that the skills that you possess are not fungible, cannot be replaced by technology? And I believe that when we take the combination of faith, of character, and of practiced and perfected skill, what results is magic. When we look at stories from the Bible, Joseph, who was an administrator, Priscilla was a tent maker, Bezalel was an artisan, David a musician, and Peter was a fisherman. All of these people had faith, they had character, and they honed their skill in preparation for the time to come. So excellence is a learned art. Again, I'm thinking about another C, and this is the opportunity that presents itself in convergence. And here I refer to the myth of the self-made entity, or the myth of the self-made man. There is a saying that if you want to travel fast, you go alone, but if you want to travel far, you go together. Well, with the pandemic, I think we even need to rethink travel. So I'm going to have my own little quote, maybe on a Wikipedia page or something. But the reality is that we cannot go the journey alone. We cannot make the sort of impact that we're looking for in these times on our own. In the field of monitoring and evaluation, we refer to the results framework. This is a logical way by which we align the resources that we put into a project with the results that we want to get out of that project. And the reality is that very often we use the term impact. Everyone is interested in impact. Everyone wants to achieve impact, but nobody can achieve impact on their own. Because impact as a long-term result is the combination of multi-sectoral, multi-pronged, collaborative work, all being pieced together to achieve that long-term result. So whether it's in your career or whether it's in the sphere of national development, impact is a collaborative process. So who are your partners? Given again that the self-made entity is a myth, who are your design and strategy partners? Do you have funding partners? Do you have delivery and implementation partners? Are you looking beyond the shores of Nigeria to address the sort of challenges that you're facing? Do you have international partners? Again, just some reflection for us. And I'm concluding this right now. It's very important, I think, that as I wrap up, to come to the notion of what I refer to as voice. And I believe that there is, in the life we have, there is a valid voice and there is non-valid voice. Now, in the field of research, when we refer to validity, we're talking about a tool, for example, that actually measures what it is designed to measure. But when you talk about a tool that is invalid, basically, you're referring to that which is not currently valid. It could have been valid 10 years ago, like a driver's license, but today it's not valid. But there is a completely different notion, and that notion is that of non-validity, which means that under no circumstance could that reality have been valid. And so when we go again to the scriptures, to the story of the temptation of Jesus, and the tempter says to the Lord, if you are truly the Son of God, right? If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. He was asking him a non-valid question. And it is imperative that in life, We know which questions and circumstances are valid, which ones are invalid, and which ones are not valid. And so when I think about the non-valid voice, I also think about the valid voice. And the non-valid voice telling you, you can't do this, you cannot achieve success. But the valid voice saying, not only have you achieved success, but worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and praise, because you have brought him all of this. You have achieved purpose. And when we refer, as apostles in the marketplace, we refer to, the 7 mountains that we're supposed to occupy. We think about fields of government and politics and the economy and education. And we've touched on quite a few of these today already. We talk about family and social life, religion, entertainment, and media. The reality is that somebody is setting the agenda. And you can and you should be part of that process. If you truly refer to yourself, if we are truly the Joseph generation, we should be activating the valid voice, and we should be setting the agenda for the spheres that we work in. Thank you very much for your audience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mo. You are brilliant, and I expected nothing less. Please give her a round of applause. Thank you for the insights. Thank you for bringing it back to our biblical roots. Thank you for emphasizing character and excellence and talking about that valid voice, that we have been empowered to do the change, the work, the difficult change agent activities, to truly be the apostles that God has called us to be the Josephs of this generation. And I think the crescendo has reached its peak. We started off with Mr. Rotimi, and then Dr. Sam, and Mrs. Adefisayo, and now we've ended with Mo, and all the panelists just gave us such richness and insights and wisdom and challenged us to think out of the box, to think about the roles we can play individually and collectively through our institutions. So I want to thank all the panelists from the bottom of my heart. Well done, well done, well done, well done. The questions are coming, and I'm going to pass it on to my dear sister, Bolaji Osime, who will take the questions and handle the second segment of this interaction. Thank you again, everyone. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Didi. That was awesome, awesome. Mo, can you take your slides, remove your slides so I can see the questions. So I have some questions here. There are quite a lot of questions. So we're going to decide how we're going to do this, because it's quite a lot. I mean, this was brilliant. I mean, every single presentation was just wow. So thank you so much, panelists. You really, really wowed us. I'm going to start quickly so I can go through. I'm going to start quickly with Mr. Bayo Rotimi. You have a few questions. The first one that it says, what are the 3 most important issues that you think the PIB should properly address? That's number 1. I'll give you another one so you can answer 2 at a time. Highly informative, that's your presentation. But what are the causes of poor implementation in government policies? So 2 questions. 3 most important issues that you think the PIB should address, and what are the causes of poor implementation in government policies? Because you mentioned that we're very good at policies, but implementation is a big problem. So can you just talk to that a bit for us? Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mrs. Osime, and thank you to the person that asked the question. What are the 3 most important things or impacts that we expect from the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill? Remember, I mentioned that in totality, there are about 4 bills. The first one is the one that has passed the National Assembly and is still awaiting presidential assent. Critical thing number 1 is to create an independent regulator in the mold of an NCC. So remember the role of the Nigerian Communications Commission, and remember their role in superintending the GSM auction and bringing about this ICT revolution that is helping Nigeria today in this era of COVID-19. So they came with transparency, they came with independence, and they brought about about a lot of confidence, and a lot of private sector participants were now encouraged to bring their resources into Nigeria. Easily, the 4 GSM companies, I'm sure, have invested well in excess of $10 billion over the last 20 odd years of GSM. So what this will also do, it will do something similar in the oil and gas sector. It will engender greater confidence. It will help Nigeria to be able to attract a lot more foreign direct investment, or even local investment. Ghana has received a lot more foreign direct investment than Nigeria in the year 2019. And a lot of those funds went into their oil and gas industry. So it is critical that an independent regulator is in place. Secondly, it will help unbundle this behemoth called the NNPC that we have. The degree of opacity within the NNPC is mind-boggling, ladies and gentlemen. This is an entity that is literally a law unto itself, right? There is not a lot of transparency. There is not a lot of accountability in what this entity does. It does not really operate on a commercial basis. It does not have the kind of governance structure that you will expect. So one of the objectives of the various industry bills, particularly the governance one, Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, is to unbundle the NNPC, make it more commercially oriented, let it look like and feel like and sound like and act like Saudi Aramco, which recently offered part of its shares on the stock markets, and it received a lot of investment from global investors. I think it has a market capitalization or evaluation maybe in excess of $1 trillion or something like that. Finally, I think it will also help restructure the sector. Right now, we have a multiplicity of agencies. So you have the Department for Petroleum Resources, you have the PPPRA, you have NAPIMS, you have all manner of agencies running riot within the sector. This bill will help to consolidate, will help to streamline for greater efficiencies, greater transparency and accountability. So I do hope that I have been able to answer that question properly. The second question, what are the causes of this poor implementation conversation that we've been struggling with, or poor implementation situation that we've been struggling with for the last 60 years? If I knew the answer, I'll probably be a very rich man. My sense is this: there is a need for some fundamental restructuring of the political system in Nigeria. When government officials do not feel they are accountable to the electorate, then they tend to act in a manner that does not serve the best interest of the population. If government knew that at the end of every 4 years, I will need to render account to the people regarding my time in office, right? And if I do not acquit myself creditably, most likely I will not receive their votes any longer. Those are the things, those are the ways accountability is entrenched in other parts of the world. But in Nigeria, unfortunately, the voter really does not count. Corruption essentially has compromised every sphere within the political infrastructure that we have. So unfortunately, the voters do not have a voice. But I am believing that through initiatives such as this, through everybody speaking, thank God for education, thank God for social media, there are multiple channels through which we can hold government accountable. So when government comes out and makes a pronouncement, I will do this, this, and that, and the other, we must be able to say, within what time frame are you going to do this? And if they do not deliver within that time frame, then let us use the various platforms that are available to us to voice our opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Let me quickly go to Dr. Sam. You have a couple of questions. I know that this pandemic has accelerated the move into the fourth industrial revolution. So, so basically what they're asking, because we know that in terms of educators, we need to change the way we educate. We need to look at our curriculum. You're talking about AI, Internet of Things, and so many other things. Now, this participant would like to know, I believe the role of transforming education is not immediately profitable. Knowing that the Nigerian policies are not favorable to struggling enterprises, how can EdTech companies survive the unprofitable days in Nigeria while building innovative solutions? Over to you, Dr. Sam.
Thank you very much for that question. Contrary to the person asking the question, I think that the environment we have now will make education extremely profitable. Now, here's what I say. Most of the education institutions I know are spending 80% of their income on infrastructure management, on salaries, on utilities. If you take all of that away, you have a lot more money available for just focus on education itself. So in terms of retained profits, I don't see why people who go on an online platform cannot make far more take-home money than those who are running physical institutions today. And contrary to what they said as well, the policy is proactive. Yes, we need a new policy, we need a new curriculum for online training. We need new intervention institutions to make sure that students are being tracked and that the quality of education is right. Lagos State is leading in that direction. But I think all governments in the country appreciate the need to push. Now, I always say to people in times of crisis, it is better to say you're sorry than to seek permission. So my advice to the private sector is go, 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 and do what you can to dematerialize and demonetize education as much as possible and democratize it. And of course, when you're online, you have no geographical boundaries. So I don't see why people in Ghana, Sierra Leone, Gambia, Mali, Mauritania, anywhere in the world cannot benefit from our education curriculum, and they can pay better. Instead of making students pay school fees in huge amounts of money before the term starts, students can pay as they learn using a subscription-based model. So it works for everybody. It just needs a bit more creative thinking.
Great, thank you so much. Let me move to Honorable Commissioner. You have a lot of questions. I'm going to try and, ask, we can't ask all the questions, but I'm sure later on AiMP will have these questions answered on the website and you can see, but I'm going to ask you because of time. Dear doctor, they called you doctor, Dr. Adefisayo, considering that space is an issue in Lagos, I think this is an interesting question. Could there be an argument for speaking to churches to perhaps use some of their impressive structures when services are not on? In fact, some of the main churches have great internet infrastructure for possible online learning. Interested to know your thoughts on this. Mrs. Adefisayo, are you there?
I actually thought you were going to ask more than one question.
Okay, let me ask another one. Okay, let me ask. I just
please, yes.
Okay. I feel really sad at the way some parents are embracing the new way of learning. This is slowing us down as educationists. Is it possible for the government to put forward a stand concerning the e-learning and enforce? I think that's a brilliant question because we're having challenges as educators because a lot of the parents really don't understand the merit and how important and how beneficial. So the person is asking whether government can actually do some kind of advocacy for online and then put policies behind it. So do you want to answer those two first?
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting questions. Let me start with the churches and mosques. Thank you very much for that question. That's a great question. We've also looked at the fact that it's clear that when we resume physical schools, a lot of children are not going to come back. So in fairness, what can we do? How can we engage them wherever they are? And that's one thing we've looked at, that working with there's some small NGOs that work in communities, small community, activists and so on, and even Obas and so on, that can we work with you so that buildings that typically are underutilized during the week, we can use them, beam projectors or whatever it is, or loudspeakers and so on, so that the children can engage in learning. So churches and mosques will definitely be part of this. This is key, and this is something that we've been thinking about. I thank you very much. It shows that all minds are thinking towards, are thinking the same way. Thank you. Then e-learning. Yes, the parents are, because of course, we also get a lot of complaints from parents about the quality of the online classes. You see, the problem is not just that they do not understand it, but they don't see that it's impactful. Too many, I've attended many myself, too many of the online classes, like I said earlier, are merely replicating the pedagogy of the physical classroom online. This is a different medium that needs different tools, methods, methods of assessment, methods of delivery, methods of engaging the learners, and so on. So you cannot, you see, it tires the children to sit in front of Zoom from 8 to about 4, especially younger children, so that parents have to sit with them to prevent them from wandering off when they are bored. And you know how terrible the internet can be if it's unsupervised. So I think what we have to do is educate ourselves. Educate. I agree about advocacy, and I thank you for this question. And we've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work, but I think it's time for us to do it in front of the scenes work now, if there is such a phrase. That is, we have to start to take it to the community, that this is a new way, this is a good way, it's impactful, and parents should buy into it. We also need to work with schools to be able to rethink that the way they are handling online teaching, so that it really engages the learner, leads to deep thinking, deep learning, not just come and lecture and bore the children and so on. So we have to engage schools as well. And of course, provide advocacy across media. I thank you for that question. I won't lie and say, I've been thinking about this. Yeah, we have, but in a quiet, underground way. And so it's time to bust out and say, look, parents, this is good. This is good for you. Schools are providing a service. When they provide a service, aren't you willing to pay? And I would like to add, according to Mr. Ikoku, do you know that I know some of the schools doing online training who have opened their schools to any child? You pay, you join us. You join us. And so they are taking students from across Nigeria. They're taking students from beyond Nigeria. And they are charging a monthly, and it's paying them more because they are spending less on generator, on water pump, on this and that, you know, on the physical needs of the building. So again, maybe a lot of food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Great answers. You seem to have all the questions actually. So let me just take a few. Pastor John, how many minutes do we have left? Because I know we know how many questions to take. Okay, this one, I didn't see any intervention funds by government for the education sector. This is alarming, given that the UK has just put out about 1.7 billion for the education sector, a critical sector of the economy. It appears we are yet as a country to appreciate the value of human capital development. With over 30% unemployment rate, 30 million out of school, government doesn't think they need to intercede to build human capital to address these issues, given that it was definitely worse before COVID. So basically, I think the question is just asking that, you know, what is government going to do for schools generally? Because of what has happened, a lot of people have, a lot of teachers are not even being paid now because parents have to go online. So we have quite a crisis in the education sector, particularly the private education, the low-income schools. So the question is, what can government do, like palliatives, or just to help so that we can jumpstart the education sector? Very, very critical sector.
It's a critical sector, and I remember when Mr. Rotimi was presenting his slides and he got to education, I read it, and I could see there even again that again it's not a sector that seems to be exciting our national education planners. I think they really need to look into supporting the states as well. The states too are in dire straits, if I can tell you, because a state like Lagos has hardly earned any income for 3 months, and therefore, whereas there's in spending money on, especially on health. And so at this point in time, what can we do? And we've sat and thought about it. We've tried to work with banks, but again, the schools do not want loans. They want grants that they will not pay back. But I don't think any financial institution would work easily with that kind of model, because we've already signed an MOU with the bank that is willing to work with schools, because what we told them, it doesn't even have to be approved schools, because for a school to get approved, there are certain conditions precedent. They can only get approved if they have the money to meet those conditions. So give them the funds to be able to meet the conditions and become approved schools. These are some of the things that we are trying to do. But I will accept that it's a very difficult one, and we're not happy about it at all. Thank you.
We can't hear
Any
you.
other question? Can I go off now?
Can everybody hear me, please?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Let me go on to the next. Yeah, let me go on because it looks like we lost her. Dr. Mo, there's a question here that I would like you to please answer. My question is, what is the purpose of education? What is it supposed to affect, or what's it supposed to affect, of course? I ask this because a lot has been said during this event about skilling people for the fourth generation. But research has shown that modern day education was used as a way to funnel workers for the Industrial Revolution. And this quickly led to stagnancy. Should education be a means of funneling workers to a specific market? What is the end we're trying to achieve, not just for this generation, for the ones to come? I think that's an excellent question. Dr. Mo, can you address that, please? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that is an amazing question. I think that the answer to that will actually transform our When I'm asked what the I tend to default to the perspective that was first put forward by a professor of mine, Mrs. Okech, and his perspective that it is an opportunity for people to have life chances. Education is simply an opportunity to give people life chances, the sort of opportunities that they might otherwise not have been able to access. On one hand, education helps us to not just live, but also to thrive and grow. We know the linkage between education and mortality, infant mortality, for example. We know the linkage between education and a reduced birth rate and healthier children to healthier mothers. So we know that. So in terms of real life, education helps us to make sure that people are alive and obviously people can thrive. But it also speaks to being able to create a sustainable livelihood for each and every single person that is educated. And this is where the promise of education has fallen flat, because very often we have defaulted to schooling rather than focusing on education. I think that one of, I take one example from a very refreshing conversation that I had with the Honorable Commissioner for Education. And she very, I think correctly, said that this pandemic represents an opportunity for schools to rethink education, for really focus not only on what we refer to as curriculum. So people refer to curriculum as math, English, and all the subjects, but that's not really what curriculum is. But to focus on the richer components of the skills that young people need to be able to survive and thrive. And when we talk about flexibility, adaptability, creativity, foundational skills, obviously, literacy and numeracy, and even more advanced skills. I think that education should be helping us to develop these, as well as the notion of character and ethics that I think Ndidi speaks brilliantly to all the time. What is the purpose of having a well-educated citizenry that can really contribute in the fourth revolution, but every single one of them is a fraud? That is not helpful to the society at large. So I think education is really about balance and positioning people to truly thrive in whatever economy they find themselves in.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I'm just going through these questions and trying to see which ones we should answer. There's a question on regulation. Mrs. Adefisayo, I think one of the problems we're battling with in Nigeria is the problem of over-regulation. I think that we need is collaboration between government and willing stakeholders. That's one question. The other question I would have for you also, in terms of us moving online, and we're seeing a lot of tech companies coming into this space. There's so many tech companies that are going to parents and they're delivering curriculum and all of that. Is there any form of regulation? Because we know we are being regulated by the quality assurance, but everybody's jumping on the bandwagon now. So in terms of regulation, I know they're talking about over-regulation, but in terms of regulation of everybody coming into this space, what's the plan for government to quality assure what parents are being sold now, right now?
I know you can see the irony between someone saying we are over-regulated and someone said, why are we not being regulated? And when we say we are over-regulated, I've tried to see, because I ran private schools for many years, that what is the level of regulation? Schools practically do whatever they want to do. The regulation comes from when you are registering. Once a school has been approved, they pretty well do what they want to do. They run the curriculum they want to run. They hire the teachers they want to teach, whether these teachers are qualified or not. They, some of them don't even do the Nigerian curriculum at all. Some do. So So I don't like to answer that question about overregulation. I always want, what do you mean by overregulation? If you say the conditions precedent to registering a school are onerous, I'll be the first to say I find them onerous. And so we've had to start to bring down some, like it says, go and bring your building plan. If you rented a building, no landlord will give you their approved building plan. So what we are now doing is testing the material integrity, testing the integrity of schools. We replaced it with, we go and test the integrity of the building. Can it, to see that we can put children in that building and things like that. So if you want to talk about overregulation, I'm quite excited and interested, but I need the details. Thank you. And now talking about regulation of the online content. Yeah, this is something that has come upon us very quickly. And we've asked our QA department to look into it. That what is online content? Is it just people coming, peddling all sorts of things, selling all sorts of things? So that's why and the way we've been operating since I got there, we are always working with the private sector. We will hold meetings with them. We will let them talk. We will hear from them, and we will try and work through this issue with them. So I think we are going to address the regulation. We started work on it with our QA department, because like I said, people cannot just come in and sell us of solutions to us. We have to know that these are solutions that are appropriate. And so, like the one we are using in Lagos State is approved by NERGC, JAMB, NECO, Federal Ministry of Education. So if you passed it through a certain test, then that's the kind of thing we'll probably be looking at. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. And then this will be the last one for you, Mrs. Adefisayo. I know that you had mentioned that once the pandemic is over, you might have some children that are not coming back. There might be dropouts because of what's happening. Parents are economically challenged now. So this question is saying, it's a known fact that practical and application-based education is what we need here. What we have presently is a bunch of graduates who cannot apply, express themselves, even with a first class. Madam, please kindly educate us on what measures Lagos State is taking and has put in place to enthrone the regime of practical and application-based education. And I will put on top of this that, is it possible? Because I think when parents are worried that they're going to lose a veritable source of income, basically their children have been out there, because at Lekki you see them selling now because they're out of school. Now, is it possible to now introduce some kind of technical vocation, even at junior secondary school level, for them to know that they can get a skill and they can actually work, maybe during the holidays or whatever. So the parents are assured that the skill they get, and that's what it means by practical and application-based, rather than pushing everybody into university. So is there a position where we can quickly integrate TVET, even from junior secondary, to make sure that they have a skill, maybe agriculture or something like that, and they can go to work immediately and earn an income? So parents will free them to come back to school.
Thank you very much. That's a very great question. When you want to introduce practical education, you have to first address the curriculum, that is the content. What are we teaching? Like I said, how are we teaching it? How are we assessing that learning has taken place? So right now, we started right from, it's not easy to change the curriculum. So we started right from last year to have a rethink with our curriculum. We've worked with a lot of private sector people. Early childhood specialists have come to us to redesign our curriculum. We've had people, Mathematical Association of Nigeria, Science Teachers Association, Koren, the education people, they've come to us. So we are all working on the curriculum and how we can make it more relevant to the needs of the environment. It will come from not just the content, but the way we assess that learning has actually taken place in school. And so we are working on that. You should know, of course, that we cannot do it in isolation of the Nigerian curriculum and the fact that they're going to go for WAEC. So we always have to remember, whatever we do, that what my own belief as an education is, you teach children well. If you teach them to be lifelong, practical, self-directed learners, they can pass. Exams are minor, and you don't set up exam learning because of exams. But we must always remember that gatekeeper is there, and we do not control that gatekeeper. So we are working on the curriculum, and we hope that by the time we are done with it, it will be like a model for what the Nigerian curriculum itself should be. And for reaching children in, because you see, like Mr. Osime said, we are going to come back, and a lot of children, not just that they will come back, they may even be there physically but absent mentally because they've had a terrible, traumatizing, emotionally wrenching experience during this pandemic. And so therefore, we've got to find solutions to support them, to provide emotional support, which we are doing now across all the districts in Lagos, with telephone calls to guidance counselors who are able to discuss with them. I had a case that we just treated yesterday, and we had to remove the girl from where we found her, and we are going to put her in an orphanage, in a very good orphanage where she will go to a very good school because she was really suffering. And it was just from a phone call. So we'll support them emotionally. And for those in rural areas who really, how will they assess learning? I've just discussed, and this is amazing, and if anybody wants to tap into it, I've just discussed with an organization that got a grant in the US to work with a low-income district in the US, where they deployed a cloud solution that does not need the internet. And you know that we've been working with organizations to donate, apart from donating radios, people are donating devices. And so these devices can, take in material, I don't know, I'm not that tech savvy, they can tap into the resources on the cloud, those cloud hubs. So what we are thinking about is to deploy those hubs into the most rural areas, and then get more and more devices for students to be able to tap into them. People are donating. First Bank started off with 20,000. We've had other donations. So that will provide the cloud solution, will provide emotional support. We'll use the churches like we discussed earlier. And as for Tibet, that is our number one thing. The Tibet department, we're working on, first we have to rebrand Tibet. We have 5 technical colleges in Lagos. Everybody thinks it's for people who failed. No. These are schools where every student who graduates with a skill and is able to make a living. If they cannot pass school start, and we do present them for school start if they want, or NAPTEP, they can do professional qualifications in plumbing, electrical, elect, and so on. Yes, but people don't know. And so we want to rebrand it and make it schools that are desired. So, and we'll have more. We are looking into the possibility of having, I don't know whether some of you are too young to know comprehensive high school, are you too, which provided both technical and academic education. So can we have technical comprehensive schools that will provide, some of our big schools have a lot of excess capacity. So a lot of, that's what our Tibet department is doing. But I think we have to start with the branding to show people that if you send your child to this school, and the schools are undersubscribed, your child will live with something. Your child will be able to walk, doesn't have to wait for school start.
Thank you.
So again, if there's any way anybody can support us with this, we'll be proud and happy.
We'll support you all the way. Thank you so much. I just have a final question for Dr. Coco. We are talking about reskilling and re-educating. What are the skills coming out of the pandemic? Are we looking at the sectors that are thriving now? Because you know that some sectors have gone down. What kind of skills should educators now focus on to actually upgrade the curriculum for the new normal? What kind of skills, key technology skills, or must-have skills for people to now look to another sector to get a job? Because that's what we're doing, because people are losing their jobs. But where are the growth areas? What sectors are growing, and what skills do we need? That's the last question I'm going to ask. Dr. Kuku, please.
Okay, well, the adequate adoption and use of technology is now the foundation for all workplace training. So it doesn't really matter what you do, you have to acquire a certain amount of proficiency in the use of technology and so on and so forth. I think that while about the being competent in the third industrial revolution, we have to begin to prepare them through developing very good curriculum to make them useful in the workplace of the future. Basically, that includes identifying, working closely with the corporate organizations, especially in your local communities, and asking the simple question, what do you need? This is the reason why we see over 400 corporate universities have been formed around the world, and there's a governing board. So you can't do it theoretically. You have to ask the society. Like in Nigeria, we have certain competitive advantages. So we must look at the people driving these advantages and say, what sort of workforce do you want? What sort of skills do they need to have? what sort of proficiency do you require, and then build that into the curriculum itself. Otherwise, we're just looking to optimize sectorial knowledge, which was the big failing of the third industrial revolution.
It should be from a supply, looking at it from what the corporates need, so that we can connect the curriculum to what they would, because they're going to have to employ them. Yes, something like Udacity, Amazon having those skills, and then, they're teaching those skills. Thank you so much, everyone. I have to hand over now to Mr. Mbulu. Thank you so much, panelists. This was so enjoyable. We learned so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sime. We would like to quickly conclude by going through some quick announcements, and then we'll take a word of prayer. Can you see my screen, please?
Not yet.
Adura, please share your screen. Quickly want to run you through our core programs. And I think Pastor John did mention a few of them earlier in the day. The first one is the Change Agents Academy, which he talked about. The Change Agents Academy is for young leaders or nascent leaders who want to hone their skills and need support to bring their burdens to bear. So what we do is to basically get some of our leaders to support them, groom them, and share our experiences in bringing our burdens to light and making a difference. And this program is currently ongoing. If you are interested, please do contact our secretariat. I will share with you the email address and the phone numbers. The next program is for young professionals. It's the Working for God in the Marketplace program and the Young Professionals Training and Mentoring program for young people between 25 and 35 years who have been in employment for less than 5 years. Basically to give them the foundation for building their careers based on a solid Christian foundation. This program runs every year, and contact our secretariat to get some more direction as to when it will kick off this year. The next is basically to ask you to be part of our programs beyond Change Agents Academy and Working for God in Marketplace. We require people to be sponsors, to partner with us in terms of volunteering for these programs. We want to do much more. We want to impact society more. The poll has been going on. I saw people are very willing to volunteer. We'll reach out to you. We also need other resources, financial and otherwise. So give your time, give your resources. So work together. I have heard it said that during periods like this, we need to think of we and not I. And it's time for us to work with you to make sure that all we say and exchange come to bear. And we can't do it individually. We have to come together. So please join us as a volunteer, as a donor, or as a sponsor. We also have some books written within the platform. You could buy. It's on Okada Books or Amazon Kindle. You can also get hard copies at Latana Bookstore in VI, or contact our secretariat. Our email address is info@aimpnetworks.org, aimpnetwork.org. Our phone number is 0903 365 4839. 365 4839. We definitely look forward to partnering with you and working with you to transform not